Hello, I'm Tony, and today we're travelling to the Fairy Kingdom because I'm playing the game Rose Riddle Werewolf Shadow, a game free from Prime Gaming until the end of December 2022. It's another one that's supplied via the Legacy Games installer, so the question is not who the werewolf is and what are they up to, it's is the game worth the hassle of another installer? Well, let me show you the gameplay, I'll tell you what I think, and you can decide. First off, this looks like a game for kids. Not only is it set in the Fairy Kingdom, but the story is very simplistic and very much aimed at children really. If you're an adult, you're not going to play this for the story. It's not written for you. The game has 3 difficulty levels. The easiest has no time limits, and I think is aimed for kids, who the story is aimed at as well. The middle difficulty, which I completed the game on, has reasonable time limits as how they describe it, and the hardest level restricts the time even more than that. So the level I played on, normal mode, does pose a bit of a challenge in the sense that you can get up to 3 stars for completing it within a certain time. There's the challenge in getting the 3 stars. I never actually ran out of time and failed a level, although it come close later on towards the end of the game. I did play the first sort of 10 levels or so on the hardest challenge level. I didn't notice mechanically a huge difference. I did know that I was closer to not getting a 3 star than I was previously, but I'm sure it gets extremely challenging towards the end of the game. So, gameplay. You play on a static screen and you've got a checklist of objectives which are tied in with the ongoing story of tracking down a werewolf, as says in the title, so it's not a spoiler. To achieve this, you need to collect items spawned on the screen via tables or buildings that you need to repair to get them to work. It's kind of a resource management game, but one where you have to manually click on the collectibles to grab them. You play Rose, but you also have assistants that can repair things, remove obstacles, and Rose herself can't do that, but she can pick things up like everyone can and defeat enemies, and also upgrade the car you arrived in to generate more assistance. I don't know how she does it, I don't want to know. Hovering over objects lets you know what resources are required to activate them. A green ring around something indicates that it's accessible and you either have the resources to repair them or to clear them. A yellow ring means they're accessible but you don't have enough resources at the moment. And not having a ring around something either means it's background scenery or there's an obstacle in the way where you can't actually get to it. This felt like a bit of a disguised puzzle game. It didn't look like one originally, but you do need to work out which order you need to perform actions, what resources you need to concentrate on, in order to finish some of the late levels. It obviously looks very cartoonish, tying in with the child-friendly stuff, and the music is basically just soft jazz, which is very unobtrusive, but it still sounds quite nice to listen to. It's not particularly a chilled out experience though. You've got to keep an eye on all of the respawning resources, and if you want to get a good time, you need to really be on top of collecting them. On later levels, there's a few more things to think about. Later levels are set up so you have to choose the correct obstacle to unlock, or you end up running out of required resources and just being stuck and having to restart. For example, you can't afford to spend a rare resource to open up a new area unless it lets you access more of that resource. You also can't afford to spend resources on buildings that you don't need. So soda generating ones are typically not required after you've upgraded the car to get more assistance. Another consideration is who and how you assign your characters to collecting or building things. Clicking on resources will send the next available person to collect or build it, depending on who has that ability. And if you click on a bunch, it just queues them up for you. which can be quite handy, but I found myself at some points having one of the characters that I really needed for something already busy on another collection thing. You can right click a resource and just remove it from the queue, but it's really hard to know who is actually going to that resource. For the first half of the game I cared about getting a 3-star, and then I hit a couple of levels that just couldn't do it. Couldn't figure out how to get a 3-star, and so I just chucked that idea out the window and got on with it. With all of these things to keep in mind, it does feel like it gets a little bit hectic at some points. Up until the halfway point, all the new things being introduced and the difficulty ramping up a little bit each time, I was enjoying myself. Unfortunately, past a certain point, the only new feature that gets introduced are enemies that basically drop bombs and just add new obstacles that you have to clear and spend resources on, which block your resource collection, which is just annoying. It didn't feel like a clever puzzle element, it just felt like the developers were messing with you. Now, I spent about 8 hours playing through this game, and as I said, I enjoyed myself more than some of the games that I've reviewed on the channel, but the last sort of 10 levels, last hour and a half, really started to drag. I basically finished it because I just wanted to finish it, not because I really wanted to play the game at the end. The puzzle elements aren't really developed enough for this to be called a proper puzzle game, and they can't be because you don't have time. Unless you're on easy mode, you really need to get moving and you can't sit back and think of solutions. You've got to be clicking on stuff and keeping your eyes open. Now, you can see the gameplay in this video, so you can decide if it appeals to you. If it does, the game runs really well. I had no issues in my time playing it, and I did enjoy most of it. It's nice to see games that are a little bit different. This one just doesn't work quite well enough for me to recommend it, and I think it'll only appeal to a relatively small subsection of gamers. I personally have zero interest if Rose Riddle 3 Werewolf's Revenge comes out. I'm not going to play it. I'd say buy a Beware, but it's free, so download a Beware? Okay, that's the review, so I'm going back to reality now. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.